After studying this module, you shall be able to understand and identify the basic decisions regarding the entry of a firm into international business. Understand exporting as an option for entering a foreign market. Evaluate the foreign investments as an entry option based on perceived benefits and the potential risk. Before studying about the different modes of entry in international business, the first issue that needs to be addressed is the basic decisions regarding the entry of a firm. A firm expanding internationally must decide on three important issues: which market to enter, when to enter, and on what scale, and how to enter. Expanding internationally must decide on three issues: which market to enter. First of all, firms need to know the long run profit potential of each possible market. For each and every firm, the most favorable markets are developed and developing nations with free market systems, political stability, low inflation, and low private debt. The less attractive markets are politically unstable, developing the nations with command economies, or developing the nations where speculative financial bubbles have led to excess borrowing. On the other hand, they see that which market have unmet demand because unsuccessful firms usually often products that have been widely available in the market and that satisfy an unmet need. When to enter them and on what scale. The next decision is to decide the timing of the entry. Entry can early or late. Entry is early when an international business enters a foreign market before the other foreign markets firms. But if a firm enters after other international business have already established themselves in the market, then the entry is late. The firms who enters a market early can gain the first mover advantage, like the firm can preempt the rivals and capture the demand by establishing a strong brand name. The firm can build up the sales volume in that country and ride down the experience curve ahead of the rivals and gain a cost advantage over the later entrants. The firm can create switching cost that binds the customers into their products or services by making it difficult for the later entrants to win business. Firms who enters a market early has advantages also like international business. This may result in pioneering cost. When a firm enters a foreign market before others, the international business, this may result in pioneering cost, that is the cost that an early entrant has to bear that the later entrant can avoid. Like the cost of business failures, if the business makes some major mistakes and the cost of promoting and establishing a product, including the cost of educating the customers. How to enter them, that is the choice of entry mode. Firms that enter the foreign markets on a significant scale make a stronger strategic commitment that changes the competitive playing field, and it involves the decisions that have a long-term impact and are difficult to reverse. On the other hand, the small scale entry can be attractive because it follows the firm to learn about the foreign markets, but it limits the foreign exposures, the firm's exposures to the market too. There is no right decision here, but we can have to take the decisions that are connected with the different levels of risk and return. Entering a big developing nation like China before other international business in the firm's industry on a large scale will be related with the high levels of risk. The liability of being foreign company is augmented by the lack of prior foreign entrants whose experience can be a valuable guide. On the other hand, the potential long-term reward of such a strategy are great. The early large-scale entrants get significant first mover advantage that will support its long-run position in the market. On the other hand, entering the developed nations like Canada, other MNCs have entered, is required to learn about the market on a small scale. Such an option will be related to much lower level of risk. But the long-term rewards are likely to be lower because the firms cannot take the first mover advantage. The small scale entry may limit its future growth. Exporting is the well-established form of operating in foreign markets. Exporting is the marketing of goods produced in one country into another country. At the same time, no direct manufacturing is required in a foreign country. Major investments in marketing are compulsory. Any company, before committing its resources to a project in the export business, must vigilantly assess the benefits and disadvantages of exporting into a new market. Let us now discuss the advantages of exporting as a mode of entry in international business. The advantages are increased sales and profit. By selling goods and services to a new market, the company can increase sales and boost revenues. Enhance domestic competitiveness. Being competitive in the domestic market helps the companies to obtain some strategies that will help them in the international business. Gain global market share. By exporting, international companies can participate in global market and gain their share from huge international market. Diversification. By selling in more than one market allows the company to branch out their business and spread their risk. Low cost. Entering the foreign markets will usually increase the scale of production to meet the foreign demand. Enhanced production would lower down the cost per unit and helps in greater utilization of existing capacities. Compensate for seasonal demands. If products and services of a company are used in certain seasons domestically, then by entering the foreign market, the demand for these products or services will be available during different seasons. Sales capacity. If companies have excess production capacity for a reason, they can sell their products in a foreign market. Gain new knowledge and experience. Going international can help in getting valuable information about new marketing techniques, new technologies, and foreign competitors. Let us discuss the challenges which a company faces when venturing into international marketplace. These are extra cost. Mostly it takes more time to build up the extra markets where to payback periods are longer. The upfront cost for developing new promotional materials are high, and other administrative costs associated to market the product can strain the meager financial resources of companies. Product modifications. For exporting, companies have to modify their products to meet the foreign country security codes and other import restrictions. Financial risk. Even if so, many methods are available for collections of payments like consignment, open account, documentary collection, and letter of credit, but they are more time consuming and complicated. Export licenses and documentation. Though the trend is that export licensing requirements should be less, but companies have to obtain an export license to export their goods, and this makes them less competitive. Market information. Getting information of the foreign markets is more difficult and time consuming than getting information and analyzing the domestic markets. Let us now move on to discuss the types of export mode. There are three major types of export mode: indirect export, direct export, cooperative export. We shall discuss each of these models in detail. Indirect export is the process of exporting through domestically based export intermediaries. Indirect method of exporting, less marketing, investment, but as the exporter has no control over its product in the foreign markets, the company loses substantial control over the marketing process. Direct exports represent the most basic mode of exporting, capitalizing on economies of scale in production concentrated in the home country and affording the better control over distribution. Direct export works the best if the volumes are very, very small. The types of direct exporting are sales representatives and importing distributions. Sales representatives represent the foreign supplies manufacturers in their local market for an established commission on sales, provide support service to a manufacturer regarding the local advertising, local sales representation, local sales presentations, custom clearance formalities and the legal requirements. Importing distributors purchase the product in their own right and resell it in their local markets to the wholesalers, retailers or both. In cooperative trade, the firms enter into a collaborative agreement with the other firms to produce the product to export. Small firms do not have sufficient scale economies in manufacturing because of the size of the local market or the marketing resources available or the inadequacy of the management. By cooperation, the firms achieve the higher economies of scale. Let us discuss each of these types of export in detail. We shall first learn about direct exporting. Direct exporting includes selling directly to target customer in the market. This can be by the internet or frequent visits for trade or by establishing a branch or a company in the target country. In direct exporting, the exporter handles every aspect of exporting process and no intermediaries are allowed. Selling directly to customers prevents other business taking parts of your margin. However, in this approach, a large requirement of human and financial resources are required. It takes time to make contacts, build relationships, and know the market and carry out marketing. The advantages of direct exporting are control of pricing, complete control of brand, direct understanding of buyers' needs, and an ability to customize according to them. New opportunities. Disadvantages of direct exporting are lot of resources are required, local language capability is required in after sales commissioning and service. Timely troubleshooting cannot be done remotely and will require additional visits. Requirement of commitment to and in market presence at some stage so that the business can grow continuously. Advantages of direct exporting are control over selection of the foreign markets and choice of foreign representative companies, good information feedback from the target market, better protection of trademarks, patents, goodwill and intangible property, potential greater sales than with the indirect exporting. Disadvantages of direct exporting are high startup cost, higher risk as opposed to indirect exporting, greater information requirements, long time to market as opposed to indirect exporting. Due to exported goods types, the exports can be classified in three categories. Merchandise exports. These refers to the export of the physical goods, for example, ready-made garments, engineering goods, furniture, work of art, etc. Services export. These refer to the export of goods that don't exist in the physical form, that is professional, technical or general services. Project exports. These refers to the establishment of a project by a business firm in another country. It is viewed as scientifically involved work plan devised to achieve a specific objective within. Let us now move on to the second type of export, that is indirect export. In this, selling is through an intermediary. It is a relatively cheap and straightforward way of enter a new market. Intermediaries are agents based in target export market who sell the products or the services to the end users. Intermediary should have in-market experience and contacts. They can help to sell the products and the services to the end user. The various modes of indirect exporting are export trading companies. These provide support services of the entire export process to the suppliers and are good for those suppliers who do not have the knowledge about the export process. Export management companies. These are similar to export trading companies in a way, but they are rarely take on export credit risk. The trade is being carried out by them on behalf of the suppliers. Export merchants. These are wholesale companies that buy unpacked products from suppliers, manufacturers for resale in the foreign markets under their own brand names. Confirming houses. These work for the foreign buyers rather than domestic suppliers. These are intermediate sellers that work for foreign buyers. They receive the product requirement from their clients and are responsible for making negotiations regarding price, making delivery, and paying the suppliers. Non-confirming purchasing agents. These work on the similar lines as the confirming houses, but with an exception. They do not pay the suppliers directly, rather, payment process takes place between the supplier and the foreign buyer. Methods of indirect exporting are filling orders from domestic buyers who then export the product, seeking out domestic buyers who represent the foreign customers, exporting through an export management company, exporting through an export trading company, franchising. Mostly popular it is with the restaurant and retailers. Licensing. License is a contract to identify what is being licensed, trademarks, patents, design, copyrights or the softwares. Licensing allows the rapidly entry into the chosen foreign market and reduces the capital requirement to establish the manufacturing facilities overseas. Your contract does not violation of the host country's existing laws and regulations. Contract manufacturing. Piggyback marketing. It is a low cost entry strategy in which two or more firms represents one another's complementary but not competing products in their respective markets. Or in other words, it is an arrangement where two or more companies help each other to market their product, where the products have to be complementary and not competing against each other. Remarketer, export merchants. These are wholesale companies that buy unpacked products from the suppliers, manufacturers for resale overseas under their own brand names. The advantage of export merchant is promotion. One of the disadvantage of using the export merchant result in presence of identical products under the different brand names and pricing on the market, meaning that export merchants activities may hinder the manufacturing export efforts. Fast market access, concentration of resources for production, little or financial commitment. The export partner usually covers most expenses associated with the international sales. Low risk exists for those companies who consider their domestic markets to be more important and for those companies that are still developing their research and development, marketing and sales strategies. The management team is not distracted. No direct handle of export process are some of the advantages of indirect exporting, while it also has disadvantages. The disadvantages of the indirect exporting: higher risk than with the direct exporting, little or no control over distribution, sales, marketing, etc. as opposed to direct exporting, inability to learn how to operate overseas, wrong choice of market and distributor may lead to inadequate market feedback affecting the international success of the company. Potentially lower sales as compared to direct exporting due to wrong choice of market and distributors by export partners. Indirect exporting is preferred by the companies who want to avoid the financial risk as the threat to their other goals. Indirect methods have the following advantages. use of contracts can be made by exporters in the operating market or worldwide. Commission rates give high motivation to the agents, and this helps in getting their cooperation and can enter and capture the market soon. Little expertise is required by exporter. Credit acceptance reduces the burden of manufacturer. The disadvantages of using the indirect exporting are: intermediary requires sales support, intermediary takes a margin, and no direct contact with the end customers of manufacturer. Manufacturer will have little control over the actual final transaction. Manufacturer does not get an opportunity to learn about the overseas market, and this could slow down the long-term expansion plans. The third type of export is cooperative trade. In this, the firms enter into collaborative agreement with the other firms to produce the product to export. Small firms do not have sufficient scale economies in manufacturing because of the size of the local market or marketing sources available or inadequacy of the management. By cooperation, the firm achieve higher economies of scale. We shall now discuss the concept of foreign investment. It means the flows of capital from one country to another in exchange for major ownership stakes in domestic companies or other domestic assets. Foreign investment implies that the foreigners take active role in management as a part of their deal. With the advent of globalization, foreign investments has become an essential component of every economy. The various advantages offered by the foreign investments are: employment will increase by foreign investment. It can lead to technological development through technology transfers. It helps in mobilization of capital from rich countries to capital poor countries. Host country can take advantage of superior research and development and managerial expertise. It helps in increasing the living standards and economic growth. Let us now discuss the disadvantages of foreign investments. These are: loss of control over decision making may lead to conflict with the host company, and the flows of profits overseas, like payments made to investors, add to the current account deficit, which creates more borrowing. Unexpected capital inflight and debt financing can lead to a currency crisis, which may cause instability and uncertainty for business and may add to inflationary pressures. After discussing the concept of foreign investments and its advantages and disadvantages, we shall now discuss the risk associated with the foreign direct investment. Greater the risk, lower the level of foreign direct investment. So, to increase the foreign investments, we have to manage the risk very carefully. Following are the risks that affect the foreign investments. Economic risk. Economic risk depends upon host country's economic performance, that is, access to international credit, inflation, and participation in international agreements for resolving the foreign direct investment disputes. Foreign investments are very sensitive to cost and price uncertainties, mainly to the inflation and exchange rate fluctuations. Increase in country's relative cost of production by inflation will decrease the probability that investment will occur in that country. Legal risk. Legal risk stem from legal environment in which foreign direct investment laws are irregularly enforced and limit to enforcement are not clearly defined. Legal risk like quantitative restrictions on foreign companies' investments produce a suboptimal pace of entry and investments. Legal risk because of tax schedules produce inefficient allocations of capital. Political risk. Political risk are primarily the expropriation of assets and the reversal of government policies. Political instability will result in decrease in both volumes and the rate of investments, even if to different degrees for different industries. Infrastructure risk. Infrastructure risk results from incomplete and inferior communications and transportation networks. Firms will delay their investment decisions and wait for more favorable conditions if risks are there in the host country. Let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. In this module, we have learnt about basic decisions regarding entry of a firm into international business and which markets to enter, when to enter, and on what scale, how to enter them, that is, the choice of entry mode. Exporting is the marketing of goods produced in one country into another country. Advantages of exporting are low cost, diversification, increased sales and profits, and gain global market share, etc. Exporting challenges are extra cost, product modifications, market information, etc. There are three major types of export modes: indirect export, direct export, and cooperative export. Foreign investment means flow of capital from one country to another in exchange for major ownership stakes in domestic companies or other domestic assets. At the end, we have discussed the risk that affect the foreign investments, which are as follows: economic risk, legal risk, political risk, and infrastructure risk.